Following up in the procedures series that I've been doing here on the Real Estate Show, I wanted to take some time to address more about the nitty-gritty when it comes to inspections and making offers. It's the Real Estate Show. Welcome to the Real Estate Show. My name is Rick Naples. I am a broker here in the state of Connecticut and owner of Zone Realty LLC. You zone your home. We've talked a lot over the last few weeks on basically the procedures in purchasing or selling a home and what a procedure is and the steps and so on and so forth. But I wanted to step back a little bit and talk about some of the inside stories on when you make that offer to purchase the home and the inspections themselves and other inspections that may be involved. So first, let's talk about making the offer. You found the home that you want, you made the offer, and you're structuring the offer to make. How much you're going to offer, what you're going to put for down payment, how you're going to put your mortgage together, and so on and so forth, as I talked about on a previous show. You want to make sure that you're structuring that offer in such a way where it's appealing for the seller to want to take that offer. You don't want to start conditioning your offers with all kinds of requirements. You know, if you're going to accept my offer, you have to do this. I want you to do this. I'm looking for this and all these. You don't want to kind of front load it too much. You may have to with asking for certain things, especially sometimes when you make an offer on purchasing a home. You might want the seller to participate or issue a credit towards closing costs to kind of reduce those a little bit. But again, you don't want to put too much in that offer that might hesitate the seller from accepting it. At the same time, especially if you're in a multi-offer situation, you don't want to offer way too high over the asking price, because this is going to do two things to you. First of all, the seller may be greedy, or the seller may get excited because you're offering, and I've seen $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 and more offered over asking price, to accept your offer. But do you have the ability to pay that price? Are you going to be putting a substantial amount of cash into the deal? Because see, the bank is only going to finance up to what the home appraises for. So if you have a home that's $350,000 sales price and you offer $410,000, and the bank comes back and appraises the home at $350,000, where's that difference going to come from? And do you have the monies available to make it happen? So there's precautionary tale as far as that's concerned. Now, I was also saying when you're structuring your offer, you don't want to ask for too much stuff up front. Sometimes there's a situation where you find a home that for all intents and purposes is going to work out. I mean, it does have everything that you want, but there's something that you need that you'd like done before you actually close on the home. And before you've even done the inspections, you want to make that known right up front. I had a buyer one time purchase a home where there were two derelict cars in the driveway. They were unregistered vehicles. It looked like the seller was using those cars as just, rating them for parts. But he wanted to make sure that the seller, if they accept my offer, are going to remove those junk cars from the driveway, that they're not going to be left or abandoned behind. It's the same thing when you do your walkthrough, or not the walkthrough, but the showing of the house. If you see things in the house that you have some concerns about, sometimes when you go down in the basement, you'll see there's stuff stored down there that you really don't want the seller leaving behind, Could be piles of wood, pipes, anything, So sometimes you write your offer and you put in the other conditions that all that's going to be cleaned out. And that especially happens, with things like the yard. But again, talk to your realtor. You don't want to overload it too much because you don't want the seller to say, nah, I don't want to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to accept this offer. You want to structure the offer in such a way where it has the best chance of being accepted by the seller. And this is where you can use the tools of inspections to help you get those things done. In other words, maybe you're not going to request them right up front. You're going to just make your offer, get the offer accepted, and then you're going to have an inspection done. Now, I alluded to in the buyer's show what a home inspection is and how that's done and what home inspectors look at. What I wanted to delve in on this show is not only do you have the home inspection, but there might be other things that you want inspected on this home before you go through with the purchase. If the home has a basement, if the home has fossil fuels in it, oil or gas, you may want to have what's called a radon detector test done. Especially if that basement is a finished basement, maybe it has a bedroom downstairs or a kitchenette or something along those lines, where it's living space. You want to make sure that that space is going to be safe. So you want to have the inspector do a radon examination in addition to the normal home inspection. Now, there could be other inspections that get involved. Let's say you're purchasing a home that instead of being connected to city sewer has a septic system. Well, you're going to want to have that septic system inspected. You want to make sure that the septic system is working properly. You also want to make sure that the seller has recently had the septic tank maintained. Idealistically, you're buying a home with a septic system. You'd like to move into the home with the septic system having been emptied and cleaned out. You really don't want to be buying a home with literally someone else's crap still there. But there's a septic inspection you want to go through. Perhaps the house has well water and it's not attached to public water systems. So you want to make sure that the well supplies enough water for the home's needs. Are you going to be able to, run the dishwasher and take a shower while you're doing the laundry and still be able to get a glass of water out of the sink? Is there enough volume of water coming in? And what is the condition of that water? Does it have heavy minerals in it? Is it, drinkable? Do you need a water softener? So on and so forth. So there's all kinds of different inspections that you'll be advised as to what you should do when your offer is being accepted. But usually what a realtor will do, the realtor's job, if they're representing you as a buyer representative, is to try to protect you along the way. So when they write up the offer, they've already looked at the house with you. They know whether it's well water or it has a septic system. They know whether it has a finished basement or fossil fuels or so on and so forth. They're going to check off on that offer and agreement that you're reserving the right to not only do the home inspection, but to do these other inspections. Is that going to deter the seller from accepting the offer if you kind of load it up with all these inspections you want to do? Well, quite honestly, it could scare a seller to maybe take an offer that's not wanting to do any inspections. But again, you want to protect yourself. You don't want to go into this buying something that's thousands and thousands of dollars and not know what you're getting. Now, some people are comfortable with purchasing a home as is. Now, let me talk about that for a little bit. What is an as-is home? And what does that involve as far as inspections are concerned? Well, first of all, if you make an offer on a home and you're going to buy it as is, in other words, here's what it is, I'm taking it just the way it is with all its warts and pimples and dents and problems, I'm just buying it outright just like it is. That can cause some problems because maybe the bank is not going to be happy with that. So again, you have to be very careful on how you're making that offer and whether or not it's possible to go in and buy that home as is. Now, there are some homes, homes that are probate style homes, homes that are foreclosure homes, homes that are auction type homes, where as is the only way you could buy them. And if you're financing, that could be a little bit of a challenge, but that's just the way those homes need to be purchased. But in most cases, if you're not buying one of those homes and you're just buying a regular home, and the seller wants to sell it as is, the seller wants to sell the home as is, not because there's numbers of problems with the home and it's a bad home and it's going to need a lot of work, but maybe the seller is not in a position to be able to repair things. And a lot of times, sometimes those things are just cosmetic, but there could be some big things involved. And again, this goes back to having the inspection. I want to talk about some of the things that the home inspector is going to look at when they go out to the home. One of the big things that the home inspector looks at, and again, I've mentioned this on a previous show, is they're going to go up on the roof. Now, when they're up on the roof, they're not just up there to take in the view. They're looking at the roof and its condition, and you're probably not going to crawl up the ladder and go on the roof with them. And a lot of us sometimes live in our homes for years and we never go up on the roof. I mean, why would we? What's the reason to go up on the roof? So the home inspector may be the only person, the last person that's actually physically going to go up on the roof of the home. And they're going to inspect the condition of the roof. They're going to look at the shingles. They're going to look at the flashing that's around the chimney and the edges. They're going to look at the gutters. They're going to look at everything that has to do with the top of your home. Because we all know that if the roof is in not good condition, if the roof has got problems and it causes leaks, that's going to cause damage on the inside of the home. So we want to make sure that that roof is in good shape. One of the things that the inspector will not do is they're not going to inspect the inside of the chimney. That's up for a chimney inspector to do. They'll look at the outside. They may make a comment about the pointing on the bricks or the cap that's on the chimney or the flashing that's around the bottom. They'll make recommendations and do pictures, but they don't actually look down and get into the chimney. So if you have a house that you're looking to buy and the house has a fireplace, which is very common here in New England, you might want to hire a chimney inspector to make sure that the chimney is in usable or good condition. Now, sometimes people over the years, because chimneys do tend to lose a lot of the household heat, fireplaces, a lot of that heat goes up the flue rather than into the house. Some people choose to just close them off. And it's basically just a giant ventilation tube for the furnace. So you got to take a look at that. You got to see what that situation is. If there's a fireplace in the house and it's been converted to, say, propane gas, or it's a pellet burning stove or something along those lines, that might be a little bit different than an actual wood burning fireplace. But again, you want to hire a chimney inspector to go through and inspect that, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you've done all these other inspections and everything's fine, and then you move into the house and you go to light your first fire for that ambiance, in the wintertime, and all of a sudden the house fills with smoke because the chimney's not drafting the right way, or there's a clog in it, or it hasn't been cleaned in years, or so on and so forth. So you want to make sure that you do that inspection. Now, what do you do when the seller looks at the offer and says, well, I'll take this offer, but I'm not going to do this? In other words, if you want to buy my home, you have to buy it as is. I'm not going to allow you to do this, that, and that because I don't want to negotiate on things. Well, don't worry. You still can have all these inspections done for your own information. But realize that if anything comes up in those inspections, you're going to be in a situation where you got to handle it yourself, because the seller has already said, if I accept your offer, you're buying the home as is. I'm not going to repair anything. So just be aware of that. Sometimes a seller will say to you in their disclosures, here's a problem. Now, they're required by law to give you a property disclosure. It's an itemized sheet that they fill out that tells you what they believe the conditions of different things are in the house. The furnace, the roof, the fireplace if there is one, the kitchen, the appliances, and so on and so forth. You have to take them at their word. Some sellers, they stretch the truth a little bit, but some are very, very honest. Your realtor can go over property disclosures with you and kind of walk you through those and kind of interpret what's being said. You can also verify certain things by checking with your local town hall, especially if there's been additions made to the home. You want to make sure that permits were pulled, that things were done properly by licensed professionals. Over the years, a lot of sellers do things on their own to the homes and they don't pull permits. So you kind of got to be all aware of that. And again, an inspector is going to go through and they're going to look at things like patios and decks and additional room that might be built, like sunrooms and so on and so forth, and give you a heads up. If permits haven't been pulled, that can cause a problem in order to get the deal to close, because the attorneys may want to see permits and they may have to have the seller go to the town hall to pull the permit on work that they did several years ago. And that can cause a whole bunch of problems. So again, you want to go in eyes open when you're looking at that as far as the inspections are concerned. Let's talk about the actual process of problems when there are with a home. And I'm going to go into depth on this on a future show. But let's say, like I just said, that you have a situation where something comes up in that inspection, something shows up, and you feel that this is just not going to fly. The seller's not going to fix it, and I don't want to advance the money to fix it, so I'm not interested in buying this house. What happens to the deposit that you made? Do you get it back? Do you lose it? What happens? Again, rely on your realtor to advise you. And usually realtors will structure a deal where you're not putting too much money up front. Let's say you're purchasing a home and you have the ability to put 20% or more down. That's wonderful. But you don't want to forward all that money before you even got the signed contract or when you get the signed contract right away. You want to hold back a little bit. You want to make an initial offer, a good faith offer, when you're putting money to make a deal happen. And usually realtors have guidelines, steps, procedures that they can guide you through as to how much money to put down up front with the offer. And then once the offer is accepted, there's an opportunity within 2 weeks based on the contract of putting down additional monies. Now sometimes sellers will say to you, well, I like this offer, but you're only giving me $1,000 to take the house off the market. I want $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever, because they see that the way you're going to structure your mortgage, you're putting 20, 30, 40% down, so they feel that you have more money to make this deal more solid. Be cautious, because any money that you put out there before you actually close on the home, those monies are at risk. And I've run into the situation where sellers have put $20,000, $30,000 down right up front to get the offer accepted, and that money has gone into an escrow account, and then the deal didn't happen, and the seller refuses to give that money back because they rationalize, I took my home off the market in good faith. You said you were going to get a mortgage and close, and you're not. So for my inconvenience, I'm going to keep that money. There are laws that are in effect. There are procedures that are in effect in order to protect you from that. You see, the seller can't just decide to keep your money. The seller has to go through the attorney, and a form has to be signed where the buyer and the seller are agreeing to the money being returned or the money being forfeited. If the buyer is not going to forfeit the money and the seller wants to keep it, they can't do that. It has to go to the attorney, and then it ends up in court. And it could be years before you see your money back. But bottom line is, you want to make sure that you're not giving too much up front right away. Follow the guidelines of your realtor. Listen to the advice of your attorney. Really important when you do that kind of stuff. On this show, I've been talking a lot about inspections, different inspections that can be done, and the purchase and structuring a purchase, and maybe some of the different things that you might have to navigate. I mean, the goal here, as for you, is for you to be able to buy the home. The seller's goal is they want to sell the home. So the intention is there from the very, very beginning. It's just a matter of going through all the procedures and all the steps in order to get to that final part, that closing. You've worked hard. I mean, you've found some homes to look at. Maybe you've been out for a while. Maybe you've looked at a couple of dozen different homes that you've made appointments and gone out and taken a look at, and nothing seems to work. And you finally get to that point where you find that home that you want to buy. This is the perfect house for us. It's the right size. It's got the features that we want. It's affordable for us. And now you run into competition on the home. So now you get a little bit crazy. Do not let your buyer's ego get in the way. And again, rely on your realtors. Realtors have been through this. They kind of have navigated through these processes before, so they know when you might be getting too emotional or letting your ego get in the way. I've had buyers compete on homes, and they'll just keep bidding and bidding and bidding and bidding until they win the contract. And then they win the contract, and it's like, now what? Now they're trying to borrow money from friends and relatives to make up the difference over the appraisal amount. Don't put yourself in that situation. You want to make sure, bottom line, that you're going into the transaction eyes open, that you know what you're buying, that the seller is comfortable with your offer and you're comfortable with the offer that you made, and that everything's been put in place so that you can get to a smooth closing and close on the property. So you get the keys, you get the title, you get the mortgage, and so on and so forth. And you're able to move into your new home and enjoy living in your new home. One of the things that came up with an inspection that I was participating in a number of years ago is the inspector discovered a couple of things that the seller wasn't even aware of. Inspectors like to go into homes, and they like to do what they call a corner-to-corner inspection. In other words, they like to see everything that they can see from one end of the room to the other end of the room. And sometimes, well, there's things that are stored, they're in the way, there's furniture that's in the way, or they're going into the garage and the garage has got all kinds of stuff in it. Perhaps the seller's already started packing things and putting them out in the garage, and they can't see the interior walls. I'll never forget that we sold a home many, many years ago, and the seller collected figurines. They must have had 2,000 of these little figurines, porcelain figurines, little nice little boxes, and they were stacked up all against the back wall of the basement. It turned out that this home back wall was wood framed because the house was kind of on a hill, so it was a wood framed wall. And there was competition to buy the home, and the buyer was persistent. They wanted the home, so they waived doing any inspections. An inspector, if they had come out, they wouldn't be able to see the back wall anyways. Well, what happened was after the buyer moved in, they're going through all these porcelain dolls or porcelain figurines that the seller just gave them, and they discovered the true reason why the seller left them all behind. Because you see, they had been stacked up against the back wall, not only because the seller didn't want to move them, but it turned out the back wall had wood rot. It had all kinds of problems with it. When they removed all the figurines and boxes out of the way, they were able to discover that the wall was actually about ready to fail. And this is the back wall of the house, folks, that's holding up the house on the hillside. So obviously they had to spend thousands of dollars to have that wall reconstructed and rebuilt. Fortunately, they were in a position where they were able to do that, but it was not a pleasant surprise. They had gotten their egos in the way, and they wanted the house, and they waived doing any inspections in order to get the bid to win the house. And then later on, they discovered that, maybe we should have took a step back and done an inspection. My name is Rick Naples, and this has been The Real Estate Show. Stay tuned for the last part in this series where we'll talk about the closing and what to expect when you actually get to the closing table. Thank you for watching.
Step into our store and discover a stunning array of dancewear. Introducing Dancingly Yours, your one-stop shop for all things dance and delight for ages 2 to 92. From tiny tutus to energetic tap shoes, our store is a treasure trove of dance essentials. At Dancingly Yours, we offer an extensive collection of dancewear and accessories that cater to all styles and levels. We carry top brands and the latest fashion trends. From ballet to hip-hop, lyrical to jazz, ballroom to liturgical, as well as gymnastics, you'll find the best selection right here at Dancingly Yours. But we're not just a store. We're a community that celebrates the joy of dance. Our expert team is passionate about dance, just like you. So we're here to assist you in finding the perfect fit. And the best part, Dancingly Yours offers competitive pricing in-store and online. Dancingly Yours, easy to get to, and worth the trip from anywhere, right on Route 10 in Plainville.